This is The Mysterious Murdaughs, a multi-episode podcast brought to you by Bed Crime Stories podcast in association with Carnage Street. If you haven't yet listened to episodes 1 through 4 of The Mysterious Murdaughs, you'll want to do that before listening to episode 5. Episode 5, The Death of Gloria Satterfield.
9:24 a.m. 38 seconds, February 2, 2018. Please. 911, where's your emergency? 4147 Moselle Road. Okay, can you give me the address one more time, make sure I had it right? Yes, 4147 Moselle Road. Okay, what's going on out there? I'm sorry? What's going on out there? My housekeeper has fallen and her head is bleeding. I cannot get her up. Okay, you said she's fallen. She's bleeding from the head? Yes. Okay. How old is she? I'm not sure, like 58 maybe. Do you know if she fell from standing or not? No. Where'd she fall from? She's still going up the steps, up the brick steps. Okay, so she outside or inside? Outside. Okay. How many steps is there? 8. Okay, is she on the ground or is she up near the top? She's on the ground. She's on the ground. Is she conscious? No, not really. Is she awake at all? Yes. Okay. Is she just not, responding appropriately, but she is awake? Man, she's not responding. Okay, I've already got them on the way. Me asking questions does not slow them down, ma'am. Knowing if she's conscious is one of the things that the medic needs to know. If she's responding at all to you. No. Okay, so she's not responsive at all. Well, she's mumbling. Okay, so she is somewhat conscious. Is she breathing okay? Yes. Is she bleeding from anywhere? Yes, her head. Okay, are you guys able to control the bleeding? No. Can you put a clean rag or anything on it? Yeah, I got it. Okay, is she bleeding from, her face, the back of the head, her neck? An ambulance coming. My name what? Where exactly is she bleeding from on her head? I'm not sure, at the top of her head. Okay. What's her way? Oh, what happened? She just fell back down. Can I get off the stairs so I can go down there? Can I have your name and phone number? Or are you able to bring the phone down by her? What? Are you on a cell phone where you can walk down there and talk? I'm on a cell phone. No. Okay, can you bring it with you so we can ask her some questions about what kind of pain she's having? Hello? Yeah, can you ask the patient what kind of pain she's having? Ma'am, she can't talk. Okay, do you know... She's cracked her head and there's blood on the concrete and she bleeds out of her left ear. Okay, she's bleeding out of her ear? And out of her head. She's cracked her skull. Okay. Alright, the other lady said that she had tried to stand up and fell down again? No, I was holding her up. Okay. She told me to turn her loose and she was trying to use her arm, but then she fell back over. Okay, do you guys know who she is? Yeah, she works for us. Okay, do you know if she's ever had a stroke or anything before? Man, can you stop asking her this question? I already have them on the way. Me asking questions does not slow them down in any way.
What you just heard is a 911 call made by 49-year-old Maggie Murdaugh on Friday, February 2nd, 2018, at around 9:24 a.m. from the Murdaugh family's sprawling property in the sleepy community of Islandton, South Carolina, to report a serious trip and fall accident at her home, which the Murdaughs refer to as the Moselle Hunting Lodge. It seems that Maggie was awakened by the sound of the family's longtime housekeeper 57-year-old Gloria Satterfield falling down the home's front brick steps onto concrete around 7 a.m. Maggie awakens her youngest son, 19-year-old Paul, who was also sleeping, so that he can assist her. During the 6.5-minute 911 call, Maggie states that Gloria fell while climbing up a flight of 8 brick steps outside the house, and she's bleeding from the top of her head. The 911 dispatcher asks a lot of questions and eventually learns that Gloria is on the ground at the bottom of the brick steps. She's mumbling, semi-conscious, but not truly responding. At one point in the call, Maggie tells the operator that Gloria has just fallen back down, making it sound like Satterfield was about to get herself up momentarily, only to fall back down. The dispatch operator asks Maggie if she's on a cell phone. The operator is hoping that Maggie can lay her phone down next to Gloria so that the operator can speak directly to the victim. At this point in the call, Maggie goes silent and stops responding to the operator. All that can be heard are muffled voices in the background. Those voices most likely belong to Maggie and Paul. Maggie's husband and Paul's father is Alex Murdaugh. Alex, who's called Big Red by his friends and family, is a third-generation lawyer, and he works for his family's firm in nearby Hampton. The Murdaughs are perhaps the most powerful legal family in South Carolina's Low Country. Everyone knows the Murdaugh name, and no one wants to tangle with them. Living with a lawyer and being surrounded by lawyers in the larger Murdaugh clan, Maggie and Paul are perhaps concerned about what they're saying to the 911 operator. They likely were more aware than most people of the risk of being sued when someone falls and gets seriously injured on your property and or while working for you. Gloria fell on the Murdaugh property, and she may or may not have been on the clock when she fell. Without Big Red there to guide them, it's possible that Maggie and Paul were feeling reticent about saying too much to the operator. Next, a male voice jumps on the 911 call and tells the operator, matter-of-factly, that Gloria can't speak. In not so many words, he's telling the operator that there's no point in putting the phone down next to Gloria because she's not making sense. The male voice belongs to Maggie and Alex's son, Paul. His exact words to the dispatch operator are as follows: "She's cracked her head, and there's blood on the concrete, and she's bleeding out of her left ear and out of her head. She cracked her skull." End quote. The operator tells Paul the other lady said that she had tried to stand up and fell down again. End quote. Paul replies, "No, I was holding her up. She told me to turn her loose, and she was trying to use her arm, and then she fell back over." End quote. Now, I find Paul's response here very disturbing. Why would he just let Gloria loose like that? He had to have seen that she was in no position to be telling him to stop holding her up, and he should have been concerned that letting her loose would lead to her hitting her head a second time. Of course, we don't know if Gloria was standing at this point or if she was on the ground with Paul propping her up. The operator then asks Paul if he knows who Satterfield is, and he replies, "Yes, she works for us." The operator follows up by asking Paul if he knows if Gloria's ever had a stroke, and Paul, sounding very annoyed, replies, "Ma'am, can you stop asking so many questions?" Odd to have the polite ma'am salutation followed by the rude request for the operator to stop asking critical questions. The operator then tells Paul that the ambulance is on its way, and her asking him questions is not slowing it down. Paul eventually tells the operator that he doesn't know if Satterfield has ever had a stroke. In the call, both Paul and his mother sound short at times with the operator. It's hard to know if that's because they're in a hurry to get the ambulance to the house or if they're just not wanting to say too much to the operator. Note that Gloria Satterfield, who was a widow with 2 children, had worked for the Murdaughs for more than 25 years. The position allowed her to create a stable life for her 2 sons, Brian, or Little B. Harriet as he was called, and Michael Anthony, or Tony as he was called. Listen to how Gloria's sister described her during an appearance on the Today Show.
Hard at what she did, and she loved what she did. She took honor in the job that she did.
Gloria Satterfield was the Murdaugh family's longtime housekeeper. Her sister Ginger told me the families were close.
We thought of them as an extended family also because Gloria did.
In February 2018, Gloria stopped by the Murdaugh home and there was an accident. What were you told about what had happened?
Just that she had fell, that she was tripped by the dogs, and that they thought she had a head injury because they saw blood. And that was about it until we got to the hospital.
Now later on, when Gloria's family members, including her 2 sons, hear the 911 call, they're saddened to hear how Paul spoke about their mother to the operator. Gloria's son's lawyer said this: Gloria was told she was part of the Murdaugh family, and she believed it to be true. End quote. The call didn't reflect a close family connection between the Murdaughs and Gloria Satterfield. The first EMS unit is dispatched at 9:25 a.m., just 1 minute after the 911 call was made. According to a report released by the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, or SLED as it's called for short, that unit arrives at the Murdaughs' residence at 9:41 a.m. A male driving an ATV meets the ambulance at the entrance to the family home. The hunting lodge sits on 1,770 plus acres, and there are outbuildings, including a large dog kennel and a walk-in hunting cooler. The ambulance needed to be guided to the main house. A Colton County Sheriff's Office unit is also dispatched to the Moselle Hunting Lodge. When authorities finally get to Gloria, they find her breathing and semi-conscious. 11 minutes later, they have her in the ambulance and en route to the hospital. Now, prior to the accident, the morning at Moselle appears to have been normal and uneventful. The patriarch, then 49-year-old Alex Murdaugh, had left home at 7:45 a.m. to make the 20-minute drive to his family's law firm in Hampton. At some point, Gloria Satterfield arrived, and depending on who you ask, she was either scheduled to work that day at Moselle, or she was there only to pick up her paycheck, or she was only there to pick up someone else's paycheck. Apparently, different people said different things to the authorities. According to Fit News, which is an independent news source out of South Carolina, Satterfield was either a part-time employee who worked exclusively for the Murdaughs doing housework chores, running errands, and acting as hostess at parties the family threw for $10 an hour, or she was a part-time employee who worked for at least one other family in the area. Again, the answer you get depends on who you ask. Whatever Gloria's employment status was, the Murdaughs did not deduct taxes from her paychecks. Maggie finally calls her husband Alex at 9:45 a.m. to tell him about Gloria's fall. Alex then hightails it home. It's been said that he even arrived before the ambulance, but I don't see how that's possible if the first ambulance arrived at 9:41 a.m. and Maggie didn't call Alex until 9:45 a.m. Regardless of the exact time he arrived at the scene, Alex allegedly told authorities that when he approached the house, he saw Gloria sitting on the brick stairs. However, Alex may have told someone else that he helped his son Paul sit Satterfield on the stairs. Note that Alex Murdaugh also went around to people at the scene telling them that Gloria had regained full consciousness at one point and told him that the Murdaugh dogs had caused her fall. Alex's story about Gloria falling because of the family dogs is later contradicted by Gloria herself when she tells the hospital staff that she has no idea what made her fall, and no one else at the hunting lodge that morning heard Gloria say that the dogs caused her fall. Note that there are some rumors floating around about what really did cause Gloria to fall. One is that someone pushed her down the stairs, but that's just a rumor, and it most likely is untrue. At some point, 3 years post their mother's fall and subsequent death, Gloria's 2 sons will get themselves an ethical lawyer named Eric Bland, and he will say this in 2021 about Gloria's fall that day and Alex Murdaugh. It's a fact and now a universal truth that Alex Murdaugh is a despicable human being and doesn't think and act like a normal, law-abiding citizen and ethical attorney. However, do I think that he had a hand in Gloria Satterfield's death or that there was foul play? The answer is no." End quote. Maggie and Paul's versions of events, as told to the 911 dispatcher, seem to contradict some of what Alex Murdaugh tells the emergency services technicians and investigators about the fall. In her article of May 18, 2022, entitled "New Details Emerge About Gloria Satterfield's Death" on the Fit News website, reporter Liz Farrell writes, "A review of never-before-revealed documents obtained by Fit News, a recent federal lawsuit, the 911 call made that morning, court records, interviews, and the few available records from fire and rescue have shown that Alex Murdaugh's account of Satterfield's fall appears to have been carefully crafted but sloppily executed in his pursuit to allegedly defraud 2 insurance companies of $4.3 million. End quote. But I'm getting ahead of my story. Let's go back to the day of the accident. Alex Murdaugh showing up so soon after Gloria's fall and telling the first responders that Gloria regained consciousness just long enough to tell him that his dogs caused her fall is similar to the behavior Murdaugh exhibited at the hospital on the night of his son Paul's boat crash in 2019. According to boat crash survivor Connor Cook, Alex Murdaugh told him at the hospital that he didn't need to tell the authorities who was driving the boat when it crashed. Murdaugh also allegedly tried to get into the other survivors' hospital rooms to share that same message. That would be Alex Murdaugh, or Big Red, in attorney mode, trying to steer the narrative so that his son Paul would not be held responsible for the crash that caused 19-year-old Mallory Beach's death, allegedly. To me, it sounds like as soon as Alex learned of Gloria's serious fall and injuries, he went straight into lawyer mode. As he sped home toward Moselle that morning from Hampton, he may have been going through all the possible scenarios regarding his insurance coverage and potential lawsuits. Because Gloria was injured at the Murdaugh home, that meant she could possibly sue them for pain and suffering. According to Fit News, Gloria may have been in a car accident the day before her fall at Moselle, although no report appears to have been filed with the local law enforcement. Gloria apparently filed an insurance claim. However, Gloria never mentioned the accident to Alex Murdaugh, who could have advised her about it. The article in Fit News includes the following quote about Gloria's alleged car accident, although it doesn't say who said it. Murdaugh was not aware of it. He believes that would have been a low-impact accident, else Ms. Satterfield would have mentioned it to him and would have called him for legal guidance." End quote. Whatever caused Gloria to fall at the Moselle Hunting Lodge that day, it's clear that she tumbled hard. According to a 2018 report from attorney Scott Wallinger, who was hired by one of Alex Murdaugh's insurance providers, Lloyd's of London, to represent them after Gloria passed away on February 26th, Gloria sustained a right-sided head laceration, a right side subdural hematoma, a traumatic brain injury, multiple left side posterior rib fractures, a partially collapsed lung, and a pulmonary contusion. In case you don't know, a subdural hematoma is a buildup of blood on the surface of the brain, and it carries a high risk of death. And a pulmonary contusion is a bruised lung. It can occur from hitting a steering wheel or an airbag. During the 2 weeks or so that Gloria languished in the ICU after her fall, she had surgery to repair her broken ribs, to reconstruct her chest wall, and to remove significant blood in her chest cavity. The Lloyd's of London 2018 report also said the following: a subdural hematoma was evaluated to not be operable. Doctors apparently also suspected, but never located, a bowel perforation. Gloria also developed a pleural effusion and already had the collapsed left lung. She had bilateral chest drains. It sounds as though she had several severe injuries that the doctors were trying to manage, and when put together, all of them combined to create a high risk of a downward decline. After a few days in the ICU, Gloria was moved out of it. She seemed to be doing better for those few days, but then she took a turn for the worse and had to be returned to the ICU and eventually placed on a ventilator. She then developed pneumonia as well as fluid in her lungs. It seems that her body just could not recover from all the issues, and she ended up having a heart attack and coding. Clearly, Gloria Satterfield did not die an easy death. As she languished in the ICU for 21 days, suffering complication after complication, it must have been pure hell for her and for her family. Note that Gloria Satterfield's passing was not reported to the Hampton County Coroner's Office at the time, and an autopsy was never performed. Strangely, on Gloria's death certificate, the manner of death was listed as natural. You don't have to be a medical doctor to know that natural causes are not consistent with Gloria's injuries as detailed in the Lloyd's of London 2018 report. Perhaps Gloria's two sons felt that an autopsy wasn't necessary. I mean, they already knew that she had multiple injuries and then complications. Or perhaps someone advised them that an autopsy was not necessary. After Gloria passed away, Alex Murdaugh began saying that she was at his Moselle property on that Friday morning not to work, but rather to collect a check for work performed by someone else. By saying this, Alex avoided a workers' compensation defense. Such a defense would have cut Alex Murdaugh and his associates out of the loop for any future insurance compensation payments. Murdaugh also began telling multiple third parties in Hampton County that he was liable for Gloria's fall and ultimately for her death. This was part of the whole story about the Murdaugh's dogs causing Gloria to trip. But what was Alex Murdaugh up to? Why would he willingly admit liability and then shout it out so that everyone in Hampton County could hear? Let me try to explain. At the time of Gloria's fall, Alex Murdaugh had 2 insurance policies that covered any number of things. One of the policies was with Lloyd's of London, and it held his underlying insurance policy for $505,000. The other insurance company is called Nautilus Insurance Group, and it held Alex Murdaugh's extra umbrella policy for $5 million. The Nautilus policy covered property, automobiles, and boats. For that umbrella policy to take effect, every penny of the underlying policy with Lloyd's of London had to be paid out. What this means is that Alex Murdaugh had to successfully convince Lloyd's of London that he was at fault in Gloria's death, and this was not difficult for him to pull off. When a policyholder believes they're at fault for a covered incident, they typically admit their fault to their insurance company. By admitting this, Murdaugh was ensuring that there could be no challenge to his liability. This, in turn, strengthened Murdaugh's ability to force Nautilus to contribute settlement funds to Gloria Satterfield's heirs. On the surface, it looked as though Alex Murdaugh was doing everything in his power to ensure that Gloria's 2 sons, who appeared to be in their teens or early 20s, would be well compensated for the loss of their mother, and that they would have enough money to live on without having a parent supporting them. And the 2 sons appear to have believed that Alex Murdaugh had their backs. He was, after all, their mother's longtime employer, and she had thought of the Murdaughs as family. I'm sure Gloria's somewhat young sons believed Alex Murdaugh wanted to help them. He was also a well-known lawyer in the area, and he came from the hallowed Murdaughs of Hampton. Their mother felt Alex and Maggie Murdaugh were like family, so of course they were going to accept any help and any legal advice Alex Murdaugh was offering them. Here's how Murdaugh's alleged scheme was set up. At Gloria Satterfield's funeral, which took place 2 days after her death, Alex pulls Gloria's son Tony aside and tells him that he will make sure that he and his brother get an insurance settlement for the accident. Tony told Dateline that he believed Alex Murdaugh was being sincere. Murdaugh also told Gloria's sister that he was going to make sure her boys were taken care of because he loved Gloria that much. Murdaugh urges Little B and Tony to file a wrongful death lawsuit for their mother against him. Murdaugh then allegedly recruits attorney Corey Fleming to work with him on the scheme. Fleming agrees to act as Gloria Satterfield's son's attorney in their lawsuit against Murdaugh. Alex puts Gloria's sons in contact with Fleming, and he assures the boys that Fleming will do a good job on their behalf. What Alex Murdaugh failed to tell Gloria's sons is that Fleming is a close friend of his former college roommate, and godfather to one of his sons. Gloria's boys, ever trusting in Alex Murdaugh, agreed to have Fleming represent them, and the scheme was suddenly in motion. Fleming then convinces Gloria's sons to appoint a man named Chad Westendorf as the personal representative of the Satterfield family in the court proceedings. Fleming allegedly tells Gloria's sons that Westendorf can take care of business matters beyond their experience and knowledge. Westendorf is a local banker, as well as a friend of Alex Murdaugh and Corey Fleming. Gloria's sons agree to all of this and leave their lawsuit against Murdaugh in the hands of Fleming and Westendorf. It looks like the sons were assured that they could just sit back and let their lawyer and the bank representative handle everything. Fleming then presents Chad Westendorf to the court as the person to whom any insurance monies awarded to the Satterfields should be paid, and as someone who will safeguard the funds for Gloria's 2 boys. The court and Gloria's sons believe all of this. Now, while all that was going on, Alex Murdaugh had been busy allegedly setting up a fraudulent bank account. The account is designed to make it appear that the insurance monies will be sent to a structured settlement firm known as Forge Consulting. In 2018, when Murdaugh's two insurance companies agreed to pay out $505,000 and $4.3 million respectively to Gloria Satterfield's sons, the money allegedly went into attorney Corey Fleming's hands. It was not sent to Chad Westendorf at the bank, nor did it go to Forge Consulting. Note that of the $4.3 million awarded to the Satterfield estate from Nautilus, $2.7 million of it was to go to Gloria's sons. The balance was supposed to be used to pay the Satterfields' legal fees and court costs. Next, Corey Fleming is alleged to have written a check for the $2.7 million payable to the fraudulent bank account that Murdaugh had set up. So the check gets deposited, and Alex Murdaugh now allegedly had the $2.7 million in that account. Note that Gloria's sons were never told the amount of either of the insurance company's settlements for them, and they never received even 1 cent of those monies. Allegedly, no one other than Alex Murdaugh, Corey Fleming, and Chad Westendorf knew about the scheme. Murdaugh and Fleming allegedly each took a cut of the $4.3 million award. Note that I did not find anything about what Chad Westendorf might have received out of those monies. 3 years go by, and Gloria Satterfield's sons still have not heard word of their lawsuit being settled and haven't received even a penny of the settlement funds. So from 2018 up until 2021, Gloria's sons are sitting there waiting to get their payout, thinking that it's all still in process. Meanwhile, Murdaugh and Fleming are likely spending most of that money. We don't know, but I'm saying why would they take it if they didn't spend it? It's not until after Paul and Maggie are killed in June of 2021 and Alex Murdaugh is forced to resign from his family law firm due to allegations that he misappropriated client and firm funds, and he goes through the botched attempt at his life on September 4th of 2021, that the Satterfields start questioning their lawsuit against Murdaugh. They quickly discover that the boys' settlement was supposed to be $4.3 million, and they realize that their monies have allegedly been stolen by Murdaugh and Fleming. Upon discovering the truth, Gloria's family files lawsuits against Alex Murdaugh, his family's law firm, Corey Fleming, and Palmetto State Bank for each of their possible involvement in the alleged theft. In a Dateline special about Gloria Satterfield's case, Gloria's brother, Eric, specified that they pursued these legal actions not because of the money, but for justice. Eric is quoted as saying the following: "It's like Gloria was a nobody, even after all that she'd done for Alex." End quote. On September 6, 2021, after losing his position at the family law firm, Alex Murdaugh heads to a rehab facility in Orlando, Florida, to treat a 20-year-long opioid addiction. On September 15th of 2021, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, or SLED, opens an official investigation into the death of Gloria Satterfield. SLED said the investigation was opened because of a request from the Hampton County Coroner's Office. On Thursday, October 14th of 2021, Alex Murdaugh is discharged from the rehab facility. As he exits the building, he's immediately arrested by Florida State Police. He's taken into custody and charged with 2 felonies related to the missing life insurance settlement money that was due to go to Gloria Satterfield's 2 sons. In 2021, again 3 years after their mother's death, Gloria Satterfield's boys get an apology from Alex Murdaugh, and he agrees to pay them the $4.3 million that they're owed. Note that Alex Murdaugh's defense attorney, Dick Harpootlian, announced Murdaugh's intention to confess judgment in the Satterfields' civil case during a bond hearing for Murdaugh on December 13, 2021. Could Alex have apologized to Little B and Tony and handed over their monies in a bid to get a favorable bond amount so that he could get out of jail until a trial? I would say that's a definite possibility. And as of March 25, 2022, according to the Satterfield's attorney, Eric Bland, Alex Murdaugh and his attorneys are following through on their agreement to pay back the money to the Satterfields. Symbolically, the $4.3 million are how much money state prosecutors and civil attorneys claim Murdaugh and his 2 associates deprived the Satterfields of. Prior to this, Alex's attorneys were arguing that Murdaugh shouldn't have to pay Gloria's estate any money because the Satterfields' attorneys had already recovered about $6.5 million in settlements from others directly and indirectly involved in the case, more than what Murdaugh was accused of stealing. Attorney Corey Fleming has since been accused of breaking with proper court filing procedures to hide moves he, Westendorf, and Murdaugh were making. As for Alex Murdaugh, he remains behind bars and now faces 75 criminal charges related to his stealing nearly $8.5 million from wrongful death and wreck settlements from more than a dozen people. Note that on May 11th of 2022, Nautilus Insurance Company filed a complaint against Murdaugh, alleging that, like the Satterfield family, it too was a victim of Murdaugh's alleged fraud and conspiracy, stating in its suit that the scope of Murdaugh's depravity is without precedent in Western jurisprudence. The suit alleges fraud against Murdaugh and conspiracy to commit fraud against all of the defendants, and seeks to regain money lost in the alleged financial scheme. In addition to the above allegations, Nautilus alleges that Murdaugh pressured it to settle the claim, threatening a suit for bad faith against Nautilus if it refused to pay policy limits. Nautilus also claims that Murdaugh was abusive towards its adjuster handling the claim and demanded that Nautilus pay its full policy limits, threatening that if the case against him were filed and went to trial, he, Murdaugh, would admit liability and the judgment would be substantial. According to Dateline, Gloria's sons, Little B and Tony, now have their own lives, but they still seem close to one another. Next time on The Mysterious Murdaughs, we'll journey back to 2015, the year 19-year-old Stephen Smith is found dead in the middle of a rural road outside Hampton, South Carolina. With a gaping head wound, his shoulder dislocated, and his skull partially crushed, Stephen appears to have been possibly hit by a semi-truck. However, over time, people in the community reach out to Stephen's mother, Sandy, and tell her that there are rumors that a Murdaugh boy may be involved in her son's death. Until the next time on Bed Crime Stories.